Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Thunder. This is Case Closed. Case Closed, the highest level dialogue, conversation, commentary on the most relevant topics in this space. And yes, we've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about the Kirk Franklin deal, and you are not the father, and your father is not your father. Heart-wrenching story about a man who has achieved the all possible heights in the music industry. Very talented and creative. However, he also doesn't know who his dad is, and has lied. His mother lied to him about the paternity. Paternity lied to him, told him some other man who also was not in his life, and he held his hand as he passed away from cancer. And then, even after 2 positive DNA tests indicating that this particular man is his father, his mother will still not give him the satisfaction. And really a heart-wrenching story. Really a heart-wrenching story. And it got me thinking. It got me thinking about how much my dad has meant to me. A while ago, this wasn't too long ago, this post that you see on the screen, I put this on my YouTube community tab. And it was commemorating 10 years of my son. My son is 10 years old, and this was on his birthday. And let me just read it to you. 10 years ago, at about noon, the true purpose of my life was revealed. And since that moment, everything changed. My perspective on life changed, and I became more introspective about aspects of my own upbringing and how critically important my father has been to the way I view the world. And I knew what kind of father I wanted to be. On this day, 10 years ago, my son Moses was born. Everything that I am and that I have is his inheritance, and that includes everything my father continues to give to me. Fathers matter. And in fact, fatherhood is so important that God presents himself as a father. Happy birthday to my best boy, Moses. Football practice starts tonight. Let's go. It got me thinking about that. And here's me and my son. We recently took a trip to Memphis, where I was a presenter at the Freedom Fest. And that's a trip that he'll never forget. So certainly I won't forget it. And we had a cooler in the car, and we ate bologna sandwiches all the way. We ate bologna sandwiches all the way there. And that was quite a memorable moment. And that was the limit, because it's a 9.5 hour trip. To limit the number of stops. But that was great. And here's my dad with my son. And this is years ago. But, I recently did a video where I was talking about how my dad is always wearing a cowboy hat. There's my dad with my son. And here's my family. And this is around this past Christmas, and me and my wife and my son and our dog. The whole family thing. And there's a picture of my dad, my wife, my son, and my mother, and also our dog. And that's in front of the house I grew up in. And here's another post I did, and this was on Facebook. This was quite a while ago. This is on the 2017, June 2017. Let me read this to you. So I got back into the motorcycle club yesterday when I picked up a black 2008 Suzuki Boulevard C90T. And my first riding partner was none other than a car, motorcycle, and anything that's on wheels fanatic. Yep, it was my 3-year-old son, Moses. And yes, he rode on the back, and he's been on 3 motorcycle rides so far. Most of the time, he was telling me to go faster. This kid has no fear. The few years that I was without a motorcycle, I've had 3, including the Boulevard, made me feel very much as if a critical part of my life was missing. And when I was once again atop of a snarling beast on the open road, I was only reminded of a small part of what I missed. It was when Moses joined me that so many memories with my dad on motorcycle rides rushed back into the front of my mind. Sometimes they were long trips, like the trips we took from Eaton Rapids, Michigan, my hometown, to Columbus, Ohio, the place of my birth. And sometimes they were just a few miles to a soft service ice cream place. My father is a real ice cream lover. I get that from him too. My father didn't grow up with what he was. My father didn't grow up with what he was able to provide for his children. Our lives, his children, are what they are because he made a decision to create a better situation for his family. And because of that, I have more fond memories of my upbringing than he did, and more than anyone can expect to have. I hope that I'm able to provide the same kind of memories for my son. Thanks, Dad, for not making excuses, working hard to provide for your family, being there and willing to talk any time of day, being financially supportive, intellectually supportive, and an absolute sucker for anything family related. Thanks for supporting my music career and for passing on so many beautiful things, including the love of motorcycles and ice cream. On my first motorcycle ride with Moses, we drove around the block a few times and then headed to a Dairy Queen for dinner and ice cream, all made possible by my dad. May God grant you many years. Now, I wanted to share these things because I have been blessed with not only a wonderful father, but the ability to interact with my father and my son at the same time. And that's part of legacy in posterity, in bringing things full circle. And there's so much to learn. And when I think about Kirk Franklin, and look, my father didn't know his dad until he was an adult. I think he was in his 40s by the time he actually ever met his dad. And I just think of what my life would have been like without having that close interaction. And being a lover of music, music is my career, it's my life. And having a father that was able to support and push me in that direction gave me a certain kind of advantage. And you wonder what Kirk would have been able to accomplish had he been given the opportunity to even know who his father was. Look, men cheat and women cheat. But when a child results from cheating, women have an opportunity to perpetuate paternity fraud and to perpetrate paternity fraud. How should men in society at large deal with the asymmetry in the effects of infidelity resulting in pregnancy? What are the current laws on the books? And what needs to be changed? What can individual men do to address this and other family law issues? And how much of this is an individual vice problem, and how much can be construed as stemming from systemic structural problems? Those questions and much more today on Case Closed. Let's go. Warning: some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Like, share, comment, subscribe, become a channel member where you'll get access to all archived videos, support black male media, support independent media, super chats enabled, super thanks for the replay gang, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor. If you'd like to buy me a sandwich, shoot me, Cash App, Sandwich Gang, and let's go ahead and get the show moving. Case closed.
All right, all right, all right. Can you hear me? Am I coming in? Is there a
Yeah,
delay? I wouldn't know
doesn't
if it
sound like it.
was.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Indeed, indeed, indeed. Shout out to each and every one of you tuning in. Now, Dr. Thunder gave a nice speech, soliloquy on the extolling the virtues of fatherhood, giving some anecdotal information there. And prior to that, talking about the Kirk Franklin story being a heart wrenching one. And perhaps guessing that Mr. Kirk Franklin might have been able to achieve more if he had known his dad. Now, LAR, while I was listening to that, um, I couldn't help but think, and maybe I'm just heartless. I'm like, is Kirk Franklin just a little B, right? Like, I couldn't care less the satisfaction that his dusty mom can't give him out of her crusty lips or whatever BS is going on with his family, right? Like, why should I care who's cheating on whom? Deal with your BS and meet me at the production line. Or don't meet me at the production line. Either way, I don't want to hear what your BS. So, and these are feelings, obviously, but I'm asking you, Eliar, am I completely crazy here? Or is it is there a point to get involved in this conversation other than the healing aspect of things, which again makes me want to throw up a little bit? Okay. So, LAR, am I completely crazy here? Is Kirk Franklin just a little B? Why should I give a damn? Get us started.
Yeah, you crazy and heartless. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely crazy and heartless. It's cold blooded. Um he what happened to him is something that happened to him as a kid. You can't get around that. He made the best of his life, as we can see. But everybody has adversities, and he had one that some people don't bounce back from. So, as far as like meeting him at the finish line, or you meet him at the finish line, I would say sometimes I think life grades on a curve. Like a person who started from where he started and end up where he ended up um, is far better than a person who actually had an ideal situation and ended up in the same position. You can't uh, all of the what ifs. I don't get because if he would have had his father, he might not have been the Kurt Franklin we know. You know that I mean, maybe being adopted and going through that whole situation, it would had him in the church like that. He missed something. So I think that's how it goes. Like, and I can say on the flip side of that, people who are successful and who've had an ideal situation, from what I've seen, they get kind of leery of people who become successful and come from a unideal situation because they feel like they're supposed to be there, and the person who came from, let's just say the bottom is not supposed to be there. So how did you get here? So that's just my 2 cents on it.
All right, all right, all right. And shout out to you people in the chat. Shout out to Bob. Click that like button, okay? So let me go to you, Dr. Thunder. Now, those are my sentiments. You know me, so you know I'm not pretending. Uh, People in the chat agree with LAR. They say I am mean. uh, Okay, so maybe mean is a stretch. I don't consider myself to be a mean person, but I actually do not give a crap what his crusty mom tells him or not. Your personal issue, go deal with it and meet me at the production line. Hashtag stoicism. Oh, yes. Then, if I'm going to have the conversation, I'm going to be asking about things which we'll get to later on about what exactly is the nature of this thing. Do we want to go to FGM? The mutilation. Shout out to you Kenyans or East Africans over there. They do something, FGM, female GM, mutilation stuff, in order to address some of these types of issues. Okay. Um, so, Dr. Thunder, the question is this. Uh, there's so many truths, right? There's a truth as to the number of hairs that are on your head. There are truths as to the number of air molecules that are in your room right now. Okay. Um, but what is the point of documenting and discussing such truths? Some of these truths are just personal issues. We all got one, right? Why should I care about Kirk Franklin and his dad? Asking seriously, Dr. Thunder.
Yeah. So, so first, Kirk's an artist, and so artists are going to take many of their sort of creative cues from their life, and so I was not surprised that he wanted to share this story, and that it actually is the fuel behind his latest project called Father's Day. That's actually going to be the name of his next recording project, or the one that he hasn't fully released yet, or I think he may have released like a single or something from at this point. So, um, so kind of getting an idea or seeing sort of under the hood as to what the motivation was, or what was some of the material that was being drawn from as far as the project. Uh, I think that's useful. If it's heart wrenching or not, it could be something simple and not particularly deep. I shared a story, when in my monologue about simply riding the motorcycle with my dad, and then that being continued with riding the motorcycle with my son. Driving the motorcycle with my son and doing some similar things, right? And those are pretty, and that's pretty mundane, but it's definitely still is important, impactful, all of that. I don't think that it matters with respect to the individual's ability to try to use that to make people feel sorry for them so that they don't have to produce at the same level. I don't have any patience for that. I don't think that is appropriate, because, um, you know, everybody has issues, and the nature of things is that even if issues are not quote unquote equal, um, it's all relative, and you're sort of interfacing with reality. Uh, is highly perspective, you know, driven. And your perspective, of course, is affected by stuff that happens to you, but you don't really know how other people feel because you're locked inside of you, right? So, yeah. Now, as far as him sharing this information and it actually potentially becoming useful to bring awareness to this usual issue in the black community, usual issue, period, but especially so in the black community, and underlining and perhaps even serving as a propulsion towards many of these states that are considering these mandatory DNA testing at birth. See, that would eliminate future Kirk Franklin scenarios from happening. And so in that sense, I think it is positive and is something that should be highlighted.
Hmm. Mandate future in mandating the future these genetic tests, we'll talk about certain issues that how that might come about, and the challenges to that, and how that might iterate over time in terms of yeah, because the state and the other side are going to have their say too regarding that, right? You can see all kinds of issues, and that'll be interesting to get into. But let's stick here. Let's get Kaizo's take on my sentiments here, which says, hey, um, what exactly are the ends towards which this conversation is directed? Dr. Thunder pointed us at one, right? And other than that, why should I give a crap who's cheating on who, right? Who cares? This is your personal issue. You deal with it. We all got issues. Some of them are not to be discussed openly, especially again as men. Now, that is a normative statement. I'm kind of creating this thing called men and how men should be, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to subscribe to it at all. I'm talking about my feelings and how I have no feelings for Kirk Franklin and his BS. And maybe I've always had issues with him and his kind of, he's filled with saccharin and, all that kind of stuff. Just a certain kind of dude that can't stand. But, anyways, what are your thoughts, Kaizo, regarding what I just said? Hmm.
You there,
Sorry, I was
Kaizo?
unmuted, brother.
All right, there. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so I think my point of view here is kind of a little bit different. So I'll take more of a personal take on this sort of problems, right? Societally, it's very difficult to change anything. We know who's in power, who's in control. Let's say if you wanted to put a mandated um, paternity test, right? Who's going to fund it? Is it going to be the medical insurance companies? Is it going to be the government? What level you're going to do? Is it going to be state level, etc.? These are questions that we have to decide. Also, okay, is it going to be just an opt-in or opt-out? Right? They take all the information. You choose if you want to get to know the information, right? So, for example, some of the solutions here, if you're going to take it at that large scale, would be, hey, look, are you going to lobby them for genetic illnesses? Because I don't think the government cares, who's the father or not, if you're going to use that argument. But let me go ahead and give you my take for my personal case, right? So in East Africa, actually, tribes here, even one of my tribes, what they do is they commit FGM, right? You guys can get it's more or less circumcision, but for females. This prevents them from having the libido to want to go cheat on you. That's one. Two, they actually sew up something shut, so you're the first and only man to go inside. So you at least know your kids are yours 99.9% of the time. So are you men over here willing to do solutions like that? Because one of the issues I see here is that we've integrated, uh, men culture with the modern neoliberal gynocracy that's happening in Black America. So that's the question for the panelists. What are you willing to do?
I guess FGM is not going to be happening. Definitely, for sure not. You brought in some of the interests of the state. So there's the interest of the state, there's the interest of the child, and we'll get into all of this, right? And the state really doesn't care about this genetic thing, and more perhaps cared about like, okay, who's going to pay for this child, and how are we going to end up looking good, and whom do we have to look good in the face of? Generally speaking, the family court has favored mothers, right? Favored women up till this point, right? And shout out to you guys, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about Kirk Franklin. We're talking about paternity fraud. Okay. Dr. Thunder read out or mentioned, that men cheat and women cheat, and that women have this asymmetry in terms of hiding their cheating. As LAR may have several different families out there that he's hiding from each other, uh, but the women can hide their extra family right in plain sight, right? They can say, hey, it's your kid, LAR. Uh, and if men had that choice, probably they will do the same. So, generally speaking, when it comes to the moralizing aspect, yeah, dusty people are dusty. If there is a particular culture, and this is a question for you, LAR, is this a cultural thing, African American thing? I'm not talking about African American thing alone, or even certain Africans. Shout out to our friends in the Biafra zone and certain other places. Maybe not northern Nigerian women, but is it something where it's like, hey, I know certain places where you don't go get wives, okay? Um, I'm saying this because we're having the conversation, right? If you're going to have the conversation, you might as well put it all out there. So is it just a thing where it's like, hey, if you're going to go get wives over there, well, this is what's going to happen, right? People cheat, we know, and then people are going to do this extra thing, which is throw the kid on you, also more likely. What's your take in that regard there? Like, hey, find the stats, and if you're going to go play in that water, this is what you get, and keep it to yourself.
As as far as paternity fraud, that's been going on for a very long time with pretty much everybody. It's just, I guess certain situations highlighted in certain communities more. Because if I'm not mistaken, there was always a rumor that even in the quote unquote royal family, that one of the sons was from somebody else. You know, so that's not in America. That's in the UK, and that's a different race of people and all that other stuff. A lot of this really boils down to lying and being comfortable lying and benefiting off of a lie. And a lot of people, that becomes the issue. I remember when I was younger, my grandmother was alive, and she told me she like watching Maury Povich. And I was like, why? She said, because these DNA tests. He said, because back in my day, when we had to tell a man it was his baby, he had to believe us. So now you see all of this, you are not the father stuff, and it's like, oh, what happened? And people like Kirk Franklin, which I was really glad what he said about him being angry at the wrong guy and being angry at him till his death, and realizing, oh, I treated this man poorly for no reason now. And a lot of this has to do with truth. Like, you, no matter where you go, this is going to happen. I've known of people who, let's just say, get a woman from abroad, and sometimes the baby is there, sometimes it's not. Sometimes she goes home to be with her family slash boyfriend, and she comes back to her husband. So this cheating thing is just a thing that's been going on, that's going to continue to go on. But this paternity thing is really about people weaponizing a lie. Like, paternity fraud is pretty much tantamount to no fault divorce. You can do whatever you want and get paid for it. And that's what happens when you have kids with people. If you're not necessarily the father, you can do a lady can do whatever she wants and have a man on the hook for it. And even if he finds out, he might still be on the hook for it. So this is, incentivizing bad behavior.
So when you say incentivizing bad behavior, so it seems like again, I go back to the kind of like asymmetry. They have the opportunity to do it, right? It's like a man can have babies, a woman can have babies, and just say it's yours, right? So it's not like someone was, so they have the opportunity, and if they're incentivized by the fact that they cheated, right, and led to pregnancy, then they're gonna be, more likely to lie about it. So LAR, what you think that there's something that could discourage before going, other than going to the extreme that Kaizo mentioned, right? And it's good to have that kind of extreme out there to look at. Like, other than going out there, bringing out the rusty obsidian thing that they used to cut it off, right? And handling it that way. How do you address it? Like, what could disincentivize a woman from taking that particular advantage, other than just, well, I'm a decent woman, I don't do that kind of thing. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, one of the things they used to do was your family will stomp you out. Your mother will put hands on you. Your aunts will put hands on you. That other person's family will put hands on you. A lot of times we got away from, people have been incentivized to, like I said, lie, and their family is backing it. Family didn't used to really back this type of stuff. When the family found out, it'd be an issue with most families. But you hear the stories of people like, okay, whatever. Uh, from my grandparents and great grandparents, okay, whatever wasn't a okay, whatever. It was a, oh, this what we doing? Let me go get my belt. Let me go get my gun. Since this is a game we playing, families have basically sanctioned this behavior. If the family puts their foot down, you'll see more and more people, less and less people do this type of stuff, because the family will let you lay in the bed that you made.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, Dr. Stone, I want your reaction on that as well, regarding what could disincentivize women from taking this particular advantage. So they have an advantage, right, in this regard, and it wasn't like somebody incentivized them to do it. It's just okay, they have that advantage. Now, LER is pointing to the past, saying that, hey, there was, first of all, you have the families and the family ties, and people would take their moral cues from a family tie. There was a notion of kind of shame and guilt and all these kinds of things, and that's being eroded away. Um, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with LAR that that was the way in which it was handled before, and now it's getting worse in this regard? Before we get into the more modern solutions, what are your thoughts about, is this stemming from certain systemic issues that are getting worse now, or are we just hearing more about it now?
Um, yeah, I mean this has been happening for a long time. It's not a new problem. It's just a problem that we actually have a way to know for a fact that it's actually happening. Um, and I mean, I tell folks. I mean, this is a regular thing I say. If your spidey senses are tingling with respect to the paternity of one of your kids, then 1 in 3 you're not the father. Okay, that's in by some estimations on certain studies. That's actually a low estimate on what the rate of paternity fraud actually is. Um, and I've said frequently there's a difference between male promiscuity and female promiscuity. I've got a short on my YouTube shorts. There's a difference between those two. See, and this is not to say that I condone either. I have a particular religious worldview that suggests that promiscuity is equally wrong with respect to morality, but with respect to consequence, female promiscuity is much worse. And this is an example of what happens. And now, if you think about this too, see, it used to be that most of the infidelity was men. And even under that dynamic, you still had a, a pretty high rate of, you know, mama's baby, daddy's maybe scenarios. Now that we have such an accepted and open, liberation, um, body count doesn't mean anything, all of that kind of stuff, we're only going to see an acceleration of these kinds of issues. And so if we do not do something to fix this, i.e., mandatory DNA testing at birth, then this issue could expand to 50%, as high as 50% or higher, because we know that women are cheating about at the same rate as men are, if you're just considering physical cheating. If you consider other things, then it's more than that. But yeah.
Shout out to BGS Idmore in the house. Gonna go to you first before I go to Kaiser with these other questions here. But shout out to D as well with regards to the question of the disincentivization of this behavior. He says, culture, state, violence can prevent it. Punishment, consequences, right? Honor killings
Yeah.
in the Middle East are a thing for a reason. And we talked about FGM before. But real quick, BGS, for shits and giggles here, I want to get your reaction to my initial sentiments regarding Kirk Franklin. I was saying, look, I don't care who your dad is or who your dad was not, and those are your personal issues. Okay, I can discuss things on a societal level and whatnot, but you coming out here with your pain and your healing and all that BS, why should I give a damn? And am I crazy? Everyone's saying that I'm. Everyone so far said yes. You're mean, Ike. What do you say, BGS?
And well, the thing is, the reason it doesn't bother you is because you're not Ado's culture, right? So it doesn't bother you because,
No, no, no,
you
no,
know, I
no. There's a lot of that going on in Nigeria as well, too, right?
what
I
I'm
gotta
saying
come
what
somewhere.
what I'm saying is in Nigeria, at least there's some kind of social control. Okay, social control from the very beginning. The way Ado's cultures were actually created, because Ado's culture is not natural. It's actually created by the slave master, so it's not natural. Okay. And in this Ado's culture where you don't know who the father is and this kind of stuff comes directly from slave farms. It never went away. It never went away. So basically this kind of social family control is been there for a very long time. So Kirk Franklin's story about not knowing who his father is and the mother lying about it because she's lying about it. She knew she had sex with that guy. Okay, that you mess up lineages, you mess up families, you mess up people's psyches. Uh, like that, like Kirk Franklin was adopted by, a family friend, right? A friend of somebody, a friend of the family. Okay, had that woman told the truth, that the father's family could have came and got that kid. A lot of destructive stuff happens, you know, in this family. And what Kirk Franklin was talking about is very, 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 very common amongst those people, which is why most black women do not want paternity testing because in the United States, for black men, a false paternity is like 41%, and that's just the ones we can catch. Okay, what if they open it up and you find out it's 50, 60%, or like in Jamaica, 70%?
Mm.
Okay,
That's
so
that's an that's,
then
that's an effect on the whole society.
good point. Good point. And I take that point. I take it seriously in the sense that okay, well, there's a whole big narrative behind here, as opposed to me having to just care about some individual guy. This guy's story is part of a bigger picture story. I
Yes,
can see that.
very common,
Okay.
very common.
Uh,
I mean, extremely common.
with regards to the fixing of things, Dr. Thunder mentioned fixing by mandatory. Can you give us some insight into this mandatory test? I'm sure it's been brought up before. What is the pushback? Is it going to be, let's say, if we use the United States, going to be like a state by state thing? What are all the medical records pushback that different people are going to give and whatnot? What are your thoughts about that, BGS?
What paternity testing at birth is anti-woman because it gives women a very wide latitude on naming who the father is. The thing is, if you're going to give patriarchal responsibility to a father, because in a guidance-centric society, and charge him with raising and um, actually funding for that kid, right? Actually taking care of that kid, okay? He should get the right person instead of her having sex with Pookie because he has sex good, and then going to Dr. Thunder because Dr. Thunder is one of those guys that's smart. He's going to be successful, and he's going someplace, and he's a better provider. Okay, that takes that choice away. We know in the management we call it alpha, ucks and beta bucks, right? Which is unfair
Mhm.
to men. So I think paternity testing, even if you put the bill on the guy, okay, most of the guys wouldn't mind paying for mandatory paternity testing. The thing is the social blowback for actually demanding it is the problem, right? Um, so paying for it is no big deal, okay? If uh if a woman says that you're on the birth certificate, say, hey man, $50 for a paternity test, okay? If you want to know. In other words, mandatory. Hey, just charge them $50 for the paternity test. I would say 90% of guys would not be opposed to that because it's done. He doesn't have to talk to her. He doesn't have to argue with her family or his family about it. All the social blowback, it'll just be done. And she'll know before she even goes into that hospital to have that baby that the baby's going to be tested for whoever father it is. And that's a lot of women, just like this woman didn't believe the paternity test because she wanted everybody to take her word for it. See, that's the problem. That's the problem. In other words, it goes
Hmm.
against her narrative. So it's better to do it up front when the baby's born, so everybody knows. And then sometimes a woman has to go find a father because she might not even know. So it's a very so for women
Um,
it's for women paternity testing is a social nightmare, especially in this day and age.
Mm.
I see. Now let me do one quick litmus test here with you, BGS.
Hmm.
And it has to do with let's just say just like classroom cultural relativism stuff, right? With regards to
Okay.
FGM, right?
Okay.
What paper are you writing? Are you writing the paper of this is bad, this is blah blah blah, or are you writing a more nuanced paper, or are you just going all the way like, yeah, you know what, I'm down if for the I wish I was born in the FGM honor killing society, right? What are your thoughts there?
My thing, the honor killing society is more about is more about FGM is more about social control, right? In a structure, right? Okay, and those are tools that we didn't have back then. Though. So these rules and these processes are built for a time when you didn't have tools to actually make sure. If you got paternity testing, a lot of that stuff is unnecessary. Okay, and the thing is, as far as punishment, okay, go back to the old school, back in the before the Industrial Revolution, right? Baby, if you have a baby out of wedlock, guess what? You and your baby might starve to death. That's your punishment. If you want to take that risk and not have any help from the family or the man's family, guess what? Go out there and do it. It's you and your baby on your own, and that's not a good future. And 9 times out of 10, most women of any age would not sign on for that.
Hmm.
That's physical and social control. So if you're out there, you have a baby out of wedlock, and and you're young, and you make a mistake, okay, guess what? You're on your own. Good luck, you and your baby.
Shout out to the uh, Pan Afro MGTOW such and such. He's saying something about California and optional paternity test without mother's knowledge. I don't know much about that, but maybe we can get into that, or maybe you know something about that, Dr. Thunder, or maybe something. It seems like there is a law on the books right now, an opportunity, but
Yeah,
um,
What is it,
so
Tennessee?
there already is.
Is it Tennessee that passed a law or has
Tennessee
one?
passed a law. Tennessee said mandatory paternity testing at birth.
Let's go.
Who does anyone know who pushed for that law and how they got it through? Like
I, I,
who?
I think it's something that was already in the works as far as the manosphere had been talked about it, and
I've
all
been
men, all men of any color have been pushing for it, right? And I think it was a black congressman in Tennessee that actually pushed it through. I do believe, and in fact, I think with the aid of our good friend Dr. Tierson Johnson, I think they had made several calls to him about this. And this is one of the tenets in the black manosphere political agenda.
Yep.
It's one of the top, I think the top three: paternity testing at birth. And
Hmm.
I think Florida is starting to consider it.
The
Yeah, and
fact that
Florida
the
also has.
fact that everyone the fact that every state, uh, as soon as DNA testing was available, as soon as the technology was developed, as soon as it was shown to be um, uh, reliable,
Hmm.
safe, all of that kind of stuff, accurate. The fact that every single state, well, actually, just from the federal level, that it wasn't just put on the books immediately,
Right.
mandatory testing at birth, that tells you
Yeah.
all you need to know.
Yep. 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 In fact, I talked to Nicole Ali. Right. She's a genetic engineer, and about the paternity testing prenatal. Okay. In other words, you with a blood test, you can actually determine the paternity prenatal.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be at birth. I think
Hmm.
after 8 weeks, you can determine the paternity of the child. The
Interesting.
technology's there.
Huh. Okay. So, Kaiser, what are your thoughts? You see that apparently Tennessee has passed a law. I don't know if it's a opt in or opt out or man, it's automatic. It
Yes,
happens
it's mandatory.
regardless.
Yeah.
It's mandatory.
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 It's just gonna happen, and I don't know what the feelings are regarding how other states are gonna do it, but I don't think it's gonna be a uniform thing, right? I think other states are probably gonna try different aspects. So let me ask LAR here. Um, do you see this happening in New York, in California, all these other places? Now, there are places where men have money and men don't want, dusty, crusty kids being entitled to their money if they're not actually their kids. So wealthy people pushed, certain Florida laws regarding alimony and such and such, right? So where men have money and have interest to protect, they're gonna push. But there is also the other side. Do you think this will be uniformly applied? This is just a prediction, right? We're not holding you to it or anything like that. It's just a gut feeling and a prediction. What are your thoughts, Eliar?
Over time, something like that is going to happen because social media technology has really put a monkey wrench in the idea of female morality. And plus, with inflation and all that other, the government can't afford to keep taking care of single mothers and single mothers um, who are pinning things on the rest of society, not even the right father, but the rest of society. So I think the government is going to have to do something about that. And you know, and one other thing that um, because of technology, in the sense of like family courts and the way you can go to family court and not go to family court in Zoom, the lawyers are going to take a hit too. Lawyers are going to take a hit, and maybe some of the people in the family court are going to take a hit because a lot of them live off of that money. People get kickbacks off of child support. Child support pays into the system, but I think the bigger issue is it's actually that industry is booming, but it's costing other industries. So something's got to go.
Mm.
Hmm. Now, along with the paternity fraud, there are other issues that surround, the mating and dating space, modern day dating. If insofar as we're in the Black manosphere, within the Black community as well, and perhaps this mandatory paternity test might help some things, but it's not going to help certain others. So let me ask you, Kaizo, and then Dr. Thunder. So yes, let's say this thing happens, and within the next 5 years, it's mandatory in all states. Does this now mean that people should start thinking that maybe certain issues regarding, let's say, the gynocracy, to use shorthand, right? Because one could go about being convoluted, right? Certain issues regarding the gynocracy should now be overlooked by men are now safe. They should now go shooting up the club and mingling with the devil again, or should they still be discerning about, hey, what's this woman's relationship like with her father, and on and on and on. Yes, she's not going to paternity fraud me, but should I not still be discerning and so on? What are your thoughts about this, Kaiser?
Yeah, I mean, it does solve some problems, but it doesn't solve the majority of the problem, which is men, Pookies, Ray Rays going out there getting multiple women pregnant. That's still going to get them on child support. So I think the reason why the Tennessee bill passed is because of actually paternity fraud relating to child support. So right now, the new bill states that before any father's name can be placed on the child's birth certificate, there have to be a DNA test there. So actually it's kind of interesting because, and also it doesn't require the parents, whether married or unmarried, to have, for example, usually the woman gets the full control. That's still in case as the uh, whether they're married or not. But the father now, whether they're married or not, can just say, hey, I'm the father, I want to put my name on the child's birth certificate. But for that to happen, there has to be a DNA test, etc. So I think that's probably how they lobbied it for child support and having it unfair towards the wrong person paying it, etc. Now, if it does happen and all states have this, it's great for the normies out there, but for a lot of men, it's accidental, pregnancies that they don't want to, and I guess the choice to either keep the baby or not is still 100% on the woman. So, for the most part, right? So I think that still won't solve the main issue, which is strap on.
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Thunder, what are your reactions here? First, regarding the likelihood of it spreading through all the states. I think the fact that it's in one makes it such that it's such common sense, especially when it comes to the birth certificate and child support. Yes, if there's no father present to be tested, and then there's no father on the birth certificate, yes, then nobody can be held responsible, presumably in terms of child support. But if there's going to be child support, then it must be there. So, regards to that, and the likelihood of it spreading throughout the states, what kind of pushback may be given in Ohio versus California and whatnot. And then also, does this solve problems with regards to, let's say, passport bros? Should passport bros resign their passports all of a sudden now? Or is it still the case that, hey, yeah, this is good, but I need to still look out for certain types of conservative culture, certain types of a type of upbringing, a type of environment, and whatnot? Go ahead.
Thanks to Jay Moore for the $5 super chat. Thanks for in advance for the knowledge, guys. Thank you for the support. Yeah, I mean, this seems like probably the kind of law that will proliferate quicker in red states. Probably. So a state like Ohio, Texas, Florida. I can't see a lot of pushback for this kind of law in a lot of Midwest locations, even those that aren't necessarily red states. So even states like Michigan, Illinois, but other than that, I mean, obviously places like New York, California, and any number of other heavy blue locations where it's not just one city, one area within the state that's making it that way, like Illinois. I would argue they may try to hold out, but I think it's a good sign that Tennessee was able to get it passed. It also creates a scenario sort of like the Noit Roba laws now, where okay, now it's been thrown back to the states. States have different laws associated with it, so just go to a state where it's legal. Then you can still do it. That still is going to limit the number of women doing that because of travel expense, because of that it's not as convenient, right? But certainly, if a woman wants to avoid, that's in Tennessee, that wants to avoid paternity tests, she can go on a vacation for a couple weeks to a state where that's not the law. Then she doesn't have to have the paternity test, right? So that seems to be probably a loophole that a lot of folks will probably take advantage of. Now, this doesn't eliminate the responsibility of men to protect their seed, okay? To control who it is that they're interacting with, and to not be suckers. You know that a woman that looks like that has never shown you any kind of serious interest in your whole life. Why do you think she wants to marry you within a month? You really think she's that in love with you? There's certain things that you have to just be able to sniff out. Now, admittedly, it's harder to sniff those things out and or to control yourself when you're younger. You haven't had very much experience. I mean, you just happy that somebody even wants to go out on a date with you, let alone is saying all these flattering things and being so aggressive with you, especially aggressive sexually. Let's just be honest, right? It's hard to say no. So men have to learn how to say no, and it's unfortunate that um, it seems to be some sort of measurement of manhood for men to be able to say, I have slept with this person, that person, whatever. I've got some notches on my belt. In my mind, that's not the way that you measure manhood. But that's one of these things in our community. I think a direct descendant of slavery, that mentality that if you can knock them down, then that means that, you know, that you're doing pretty good. So I think a lot of that stuff has to be changed. Men have to change the way that they move so that this is less likely to affect them. But on the flip side of that, it's not like it's not like just being smart and protecting yourself is always going to defend you from a woman that has this in their back pocket and knows how to do it. In other words, you could be married, you could be in a long-term relationship, you already had a kid by this woman, and I mean, if she's clever, she could, a few of them in between might not be yours. How do you defend yourself against that? So, anyhow,
Yeah, I think
Indeed.
we just did a video about a woman that lost 100 pounds, and that issue came up where she was actually cheating on her husband, and she did indeed get pregnant, and talked him into getting a abortion. So what if she had the child and you had this law in place, and she didn't?
yeah.
She came up and had the baby, and guess what? It's not your husband's.
BGS, what do you think about and then Ellie, I want your reaction on this as well. The state moving thing. Um, Dr. Thunder brought up one version of it, but I was going to ask about, hey, if you have a child support case, I do
Hmm.
know that while it does take money and such, that you can move your case from one state to a different state, well, one jurisdiction to a different jurisdiction, generally speaking, right?
Hmm.
So is it now, speaking of individual men now who might be in such a battle?
Okay,
Go
say
ahead.
say 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 if she did that, right, and say, just take uh, two what you call it, two states that are close together, like Oklahoma and Texas, right? Or say even Tennessee and Texas. Okay, say that she went from Tennessee and she went to Texas to have the child. Okay, and she filed for child support, right? The two states have to agree, because the state where you're at, it say Tennessee has to collect. It doesn't. Texas can't collect. Tennessee has to collect. So, and they're going to ask what? Okay, well, in Tennessee, you got to have a paternity test to get for actually enforce child support. So she's going to have to come back or bring the child back and be tested, or send the DNA to be tested against the father's DNA. That's how that works.
Hmm. Um, LAR, uh, you got a book out there, so you're an expert, right? Uh, it, how does it work, generally speaking, based on your knowledge, when it comes to moving a child support case from the man's perspective now from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction? I know it takes good lawyers and some money and some time and showing up and all that stuff, which is, which a lot of guys don't do. But is it possible to now say, hey, I'm taking my child support stuff to Tennessee, where I can at least get part of, uh, now this might fly in the face of something that BJ just said because both states have to agree and such. But from a man's perspective, in a child support situation, moving from state to state, what information do you have regarding that?
From a man's perspective, there's nothing you could do because if it's a custody, if you got custody, Yes, but since most men don't have custody, you just moved. That's it. Like a lot, the hustle a lot of times with the mothers who normally have custody is this: they'll move from one state to another to try to either up their percentage or lengthen out how long you have to pay child support. See, some places is 18, some places is 19. Some places, you know, they add extra years for colleges, some places they don't. So that's part of their moving hustle. Guys, if you had a kid, say, let's just say you had a kid in Florida and y'all are following the child support laws of Florida, and you decide to move to North Carolina, you're still going to be held to Florida standards. You left. Now, if she leaves and she goes from Florida to North Carolina, she's going to start figuring out which one is most advantageous. As a matter of fact, who got into that? A celebrity. Chris Brown had that issue. He had a child with a woman with the woman. I forgot, like, the first child, and they had a custody and child support stuff in Texas. She tried to move to California because California pays more, but they already had an agreement in Texas. And people were trying to figure out why would she want to move to California, and it was like, yeah, it's the difference between one state that has a what do you call that, a cap. Texas puts a cap on it, like Georgia does, to a state that the cap is really 10% of whatever, 10, 20, 25% or whatever. So she was um, trying to figure out, can I get 5,000 here or can I get 20,000 here? So that's usually where that goes.
Mm. Very, very good points. Very, very good points. So I'm gonna ask Dr. Thunder and then BGS this kind of it's a question about maybe looking back in history, and it's not revisionist per se, but it's asking this question. Somebody said something about the black family functioning best at a particular time, um, and in interest of skepticism, right? One can always say, hey, I keep hearing people painting, looking backwards, and cherry picking and saying certain things. Yes, maybe they were together in the same house and whatnot. But is it really the case that the black family was great before, 60s, 70s, something like that? Many things went wrong during that time, by the way. So this is not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just wondering, if is there, BGS, a skeptical view on this generally accepted notion of how well the black family was after slavery and then how it got completely destroyed? Is there some skepticism? Is there something that could be, you know, go ahead. You know what I
It,
mean.
it, it, it was more functional, because the environment that is in. I just had this argument with I think Trey the MBD um, about the black family structure in the South. Um, it was very extended family, or called clan based um, structure. You know, uh, ba- uh, 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 anybody from the South knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, my brother's from New Orleans. He knows what I'm talking about as far as the extended family down south. So on a rural in a rural environment, where you have groups of families, or what they call a clan based structure, just like Kirk Franklin, right? He wasn't adopted by a family member. He was adopted by an extended family that took him in. Okay, that's the way it works. But the thing is, if you read the literature, uh, I think it is Frazier's book, Negro Family United States. If you read the Kerner Commission, if you read the Moynihan Report, if you read uh, Kenneth Clark's book, Dark Ghetto, they say the same thing. When the black folks moved from a rural environment to an urban environment where the extended family could not function as well, that's when you started declining the black family. More out of wedlock births, more divorce, more breakups of family because of stuff like that, because it moved out of the environment that was forged in. So that's the problem. So did it function better prior to, I say, 1940 or 1950? Yes, because I think it was 70 to 80% of black people are still rural. Okay, post 19, post World War II, then black folks majority started to move into the cities, and then as you became more urban and instead of rural, that's part of the United States too, because I think only what is it, 6% of the people actually rule anymore. So, black folks, the black family structure, the black culture in an urban environment doesn't work very well, and that's what you see. That's like when we see high out of wedlock birth, low marriage rates, dysfunctional families, is because our culture is not adapted to an urban environment. It's not adapted to black families, not really adapted to be a nuclear family. Okay, it just wasn't, and I think even your scholars agree upon that. I think I can't remember her name. Um, she actually wrote a book called "Black Women, Black Love." She she actually espouses to go back to the old model, which is she calls it Ghana Protestal, or she calls it the Africana Kinship Network, where it's groups of families, groups of clans, of people all together that that kind of cover up the holes or the defects.
Hmm. Good point. Yeah, as you were speaking, I was about to say, hey, it's kind of interesting that you're basically saying that the nuclear family was not necessarily uh, developed or well developed in the black families; that it was more of the extended family, and this kind of thrives in urban areas for several reasons, and hence, the black family could not really survive the urban area as some other families did. It's interesting that some people talk about going back to that clan style, which I find to be less probable than just maybe building the nuclear family again. Dr. Thunder, what are your thoughts regarding the question of it was better in the past? Was it better in the past, or was it just in a particular kind of a crucible where it worked, but once exposed elsewhere, it cannot function? And secondly, what is to be done now? Is it this more what, from my point of view, seems a little bit more fantastic? This idea of the village again. Where is this village coming from, right? Um, it sounds like a bunch of women drinking wine, fantasizing about, the communalism or whatever, and adding African in front of it. I mean, Afro. You add Afro front of any ism these days as a thing. It's got to be Afro capitalism, Afro psychism, Afro Buddhism, whatever the hell it is the solution to things. But point is, the first question is about it was better in the past. What are your thoughts about that particular past? And then now, building a nuclear family versus trying to reconstitute the more extended family in an urban environment to save the black family, quote unquote. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. This was it better in the past? It sort of smacks of, make America great again, kind of a thing where you go in the past because perhaps there were certain traditional features that maybe more family values, less sort of proliferation of the, the whole female supremacy business. Um, uh, However, you also run up against issues like not having equal protection under the law. Um, you run into issues where you have a lot of black folks. They hear that and it conjures up images of lynchings or of quote unquote separate but equal when we know it was not equal, or in any number of you know issues, redlining and Tuskegee experiment and the Klan and long list of things. So in one sense, from a family structure basis, yeah, there was a time in history when the black community was more married than the general society, than members of the dominant society even. Um, and because we were sort of forced to be together, uh, you know, we were more functional. We had to be more functional. There was no choice. Um, Now you fast forward, through what I dub forced integration. Um, Much of that functional, many of those functional qualities, they almost totally go away because we no longer have a particular force that is pushing us together, and then you start to see how different what are called black people actually are. Quite diverse population actually. Um, so yeah, I mean, I I see a lot of things in our past that we could go back to as far as emulating. I don't think that you have to throw out the baby with the bathwater, or and I think that you can be more nuanced. You can eat the meat and spit out the bone. You can say, well, yeah, obviously I don't want a cross burning in my front yard, but I could also, I can also acknowledge that, you know, a lower BMI for black people is is quite beneficial. It's a lot better. So you can analyze, you can take a look at different aspects of it and say, okay, I'll take that, but I don't want this other aspect. And we can try to find ways to promote those ideas. I don't think that that's really possible in America. I don't think that. I think that that'll never happen. Um, as far as this sort of village, it takes a village. What I've grown to see that sentiment, which I almost always hear that from women, and I don't hear men
Yep.
saying that very often. Okay. Um, what I have learned to accept that to mean is we require a village since we have exiled the men of substance. You have to have some sort of mechanism, and I think that that mentality is why black community, our women in particular, have been so susceptible to this sort of luring by our government to, you know, get rid of the men so that they can maintain their independence, but have a quote unquote community, have a village, and in this sense, the village is government daddy. So yeah.
The village is government daddy, and also the village is very much within their purview, within their control, insofar as certain segments of that community. Anyways, Kaizo, before I go to LAR real quick, what do you think about that? I have the same intuition that Dr. Thunder has. You hear that village stuff from women a lot. Part, in terms of the steel manning of it will be, okay, well, women are more communitarian and they want that village stuff. But then kind of look at them again like, hey, this is obviously because you chase the good men out. You don't want to be under the leadership of these men. The good men ran away. They followed the good book. They went to live on the corner of the roof of the house, rather be there than be with a quarrelsome woman, right? And now these are quarrelsome women are talking about some society or some group village thing, blah blah blah. Also written within the texts of the Black Lives Matter type stuff. What are your intuitions here regarding that village, as opposed to, hey, how about you just have some regular? Seems easier to just have a nuclear family rather than trying to create this crazy village stuff. What are your thoughts, guys?
Okay, so this is not a thought, this is fact. The village stuff is actually something utilized by black feminists as well as black let's get busy together activists, right? When Black Lives Matter started, they stated on their back page, they literally stated, we're here to advocate for black trans women as well as black women and their children. So this whole village scenario is actually matriarchy on steroids, whereby the only patriarchal head is the government itself. So what they want to do is obviously replace you, create a new world whereby it's them, right, the matriarchy, right, the village of single mothers out there, and obviously the simps who are participating in that culture as well as the government. So the government is where they will tax the single men, right, who are not participating in the village and to kind of fund them. Because if you look at any sort of culture, I just use one simple example: Maasai tribe in Kenya, right? It is a village taking care of everyone, right? The women are the ones taking care of the kids with the power and
Your one
everything.
and only
But guess what?
favorite example. Go ahead.
Yeah, the men are there. Actually, the elders, all the elders are men, right? There's a reason for that, because not just that, the men who were warriors, part of the Moran culture, so they had to be warriors who had served in order to become elders, and as elders they are listened to. So of course then the whole community does take care of the children. You can't have rights with no responsibility. So no, this whole village stuff, honestly, it might seem right to an individual simp who feels bad for these kids, but all you're doing is you're putting yourself in a bad place, right? Because the issue is you as the simp will start feeling resentment towards these people, and then it will eat at your soul. So anyways, yeah, in general, no, it doesn't work. This is just post modern black feminism.
Hmm. Yeah, so you need a village in order to kind of diffuse responsibility, escape from accountability. And yeah, shout out. There is a reason why in a lot of societies, well, most, let's not talk about the exceptions. If we were to speak statistically, one could just say all societies have the structure that you described, where it is men, and not just men who have skin in the game. And I've literally put skin in the game. Shout out to Plato, talking about the guardians being the ones, those philosopher kings have to have been warriors themselves, blah, 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 and they will be the ones more likely to hold the line of accountability and such. And you shouldn't burden women with these types of things, and they're not interested in accountability. Um, LAR, what are your thoughts about this past? Right, it worked better in the past. BGS has given us his take on it. Right, given the rural communitarian extended family situation that worked, not very strong nuclear families that got completely destroyed when you move to the cities. Okay, so what are your thoughts about that? It worked better in the past,
Wait,
and
just
also
before I
now
ask,
in.
can I add something there
Oh yeah,
briefly?
go ahead.
Yeah, another thing I'll say, right, and this is an issue of men, right? We only reached here because of men, right? And I say this because of this, right? Uh, Men don't seem to get this, right? I even debated Bernard Riley, and he called me a black male feminist, which is insane, right? I think he thought I was this FD signifier guy. But one of the issues is men try to reason with women. You cannot reason with women, right? Women use tactical logic, and you are trying to reason strategically across time, and you're not arguing on the same thing. They're there to win a point, not to actually move the point forward. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is anytime you reason with them and then you give up space, what happens is you just create a bigger hellhole slowly across time. There is no debating or arguing with women. You argue with other men, right? You can get all the reasonable perspectives from other men.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree with that. I typically say, yeah, don't listen to women. Don't listen to women. Don't listen to women. Okay, like, because they'll tell you one thing Monday, tell you another thing Tuesday, and then they'll fight you for. They'll tell you, well, why the hell did you listen to me? And anyone who's been around women knows these types of things. And if you want to be strange about it and start nitpicking, you're probably a woman, because and start goalpost shifting. Shout out tactical logic is what they do, meaning goalpost shifting to win, because to lose kind of touches this emotional point, blah blah blah. And then maybe on a Tuesday they might be willing to lose and be more submissive, blah blah blah. That's why you don't listen to them. It's because of the inconsistency. Not that they can't reason in time. It's just that the goalpost shifts so much that why are you bothering, right? Um, some people simply understand this. Some people don't. The more you buy into postmodern individualism and individual rights, and everybody is an individual and thinks, the more you might fall for this reasoning with women stuff. But LAR, what are your thoughts about the past? It worked better in the past, and now what we need to go to is a community, a village, and such. And there's no men involved here. It's not a household with a man at the head. It's a community with crazy women drinking wine.
Hey, 1 second, 1 second before you answer that, I just want to, I want to make this point real quick. I'll be right back. Like, share, comment, subscribe, become a channel member where you'll get access to all archived videos. Support Black Male Media, support independent media, super chats enabled, super thanks for the replay gang. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor. If you would like to buy me a sandwich, then go ahead and shoot me a Cash App. Sandwich Gang. And yeah, support the show. If you like this topic, if you like the show, got an all-star panel, got BGS, Ike Ogiamian, LAR movement, Kaizo, and of course we're on Dr. Thunder, Dr. Thunder's channel. That's me. And so please support the show. Please support the show. And continuing on. Go ahead.
All right, LAR.
Look, it was better back then. It was, in a general sense, because um, when people say it takes a village, basically what people are saying is, people are basically in their hometowns, and when you're in your hometown, you got your family is very close. You're not just a nuclear family, your extended family, and then you have friends of the family, and other people's friends of the family. Everybody kind of knew each other. So if anything happened, people pretty much knew what was going on. People could send you messages and this, that, and the third. So the connection was better. Now what you get is a lot of people who are scattered all over the place, in the sense of, you might go to a city, you might have your whole family might be from a place, but now all of your family is scattered across the United States of America, and it might be just them or two or three people together, and then not a bigger unit that's cohesive like that. You don't know your neighbors like that. Your neighbors don't know you like that. Y'all don't know each other's families like that. So in general, people were more hands on with the whole community because everybody knew each other or knew of each other. Yeah, we forget how um, people had teachers that taught generations of families. You know what I'm saying? That's the same thing with the doctors and the dentists and all that other stuff. So even like when I saw the comment about the daycare in New York, I can say even when I was a child, I went to daycare, but it was like a family daycare. So everybody, we knew each other, and people knew each other like that. We don't know each other like that anymore. So that's the issue. That's how people could step in. Now people can't step in with your kids or mentor your kids because you're just a stranger. You know, Nobody can vouch for you. So that's my thought on that.
Indeed. BGS, with regards to, reasoning with women and whatnot, there is a issue that is parallel to this, tangential to this, parental alienation, let's say, right? So
Uh-huh.
it's women behaving badly, and I have seen certain types of pushback against it that are coming from the let's tell women that this is bad, which is just insane. Like, what the hell why do you think she's doing it? Okay, she's doing it because it's bad. She's doing it
Yeah.
because it's crazy, right? So, how generally, okay, men typically have power within the realm of, or men's power, with regards to women is not going to be with regards to reasoning with them. This is kind of a question, right? So,
Hmm.
is it the reasoning? Let's tell them it's bad, um, or hey, I'm going to make certain hard choices. I'm going to cut out certain people from my life. I'm going to put in certain rules to make it difficult for you to do this to me, right? And insofar as I go out there to say it's a bad thing, it's going to be for soft power purposes, for propaganda purposes, so that I can get my ends meet. A general question regarding your thoughts about parental alienation and whether or not the perpetrators are to be reasoned with or should be treated as basically enemy combatants, right? That look, or even worse than that, that you don't reason with these people. You don't go telling them that, hey, it's bad. They're bad. They're doing it because it's bad. And what is to be done, BGS?
Yeah, well, the state is going to have to come in and enforce this. That's one thing that's on the agenda: 50-50 custody or co-parenting at birth. Or upon separation. It should have been that way in the first place, so that these kind of things can't happen. Because we know that a woman for either revenge or money will do things like this. It's not something that's new. If she doesn't like the way you broke up, or she doesn't like you, or the thing where you guys break up or you get a divorce and you move on to get a new wife, all of a sudden, um, she's gonna weaponize the children against you. She's gonna hit your pockets or or punish you through your children. So the state's gonna have to it's going to have to, since the state and actually encourages this kind of behavior, by incentivizing it, they have to do something to kind of de-incentivize it. People, women are people, especially emotional people, and when actually, what is it, the woman scorned? Hell, have no fear like a woman scorned. Yeah, she's gonna hit your pockets, or she's gonna hit your children. That's the only way she can actually get to you.
Hmm. Okay, so it's interesting. What do you think can be done about this particular aspect here? Because I don't know. Maybe there can be laws that, generally speaking, it is difficult to police psychological violence. Blah blah blah. We know the this
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. With regards to men versus women, it's easy to see what men are doing. They hit you over the head with a stick. You put handcuffs on them. Women do some weird stuff, and where are the handcuffs I'm going to put on them? How do I even know what happened? Right? Blah blah blah. Right?
Yeah.
So it's difficult to kind of police that. But before I go to Kaiser, I don't know. Do you have any ideas on how this
It's
type
not
of stuff can be
difficult.
policed?
You can police it. Okay, you can police it. You know, they can they can take the children and give them to the father. It's easy to police it. Okay, you don't act right. You don't want to alienate the father. Guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna take the child from you and give it to the father. They have that right.
Oh, you're seven.
Can I jump in? Can I say something here?
Yeah, go ahead.
So here's see, we've known that this stuff has been going on for a long time. All right, and in fact, the system was designed to facilitate this foolishness. Right, so to incentivize, to facilitate this, and all of this girl power, female supremacy, all of this stuff that has been put in place was put in place specifically for the purpose of creating the dynamic that we have now. And so when people, in a disingenuous fashion, try to act as though, well, the pendulum just went too far that way. That was not the intended, consequence. That was not what we actually wanted to happen. That's hogwash. They wanted this to happen. They wanted it to disenfranchise men as much as possible, to destabilize whatever quote unquote patriarchy or whatever, and to increase by any means necessary whatever female power there was. And so we're here because they have been pushing this direction for all this time on purpose. It's not by mistake. Okay? And part of the way that we know that this is the case is that even though it can be clearly shown, you can look at college enrollment, you can look at black community, you can look at black college professors, you can look at break it down, how many women, how many men. You can look at how much women are getting paid for the same job, especially in big cities. Okay, you can look at, there's an innumerable data points. You can look at the high school valedictorians and class presidents being 93% female forever. For a long time, it's been that way, right? You can look at all of this stuff. You can look at all this stuff, and they have been looking at this stuff, and they keep pushing it further. So there's no indication to me that somehow they're going to just say, you know what, we should do the right thing. We need to we need to fess up. We need to acknowledge that we did this on purpose, and we need to take our punishment. No, it's not going to happen that way. The way that it's going to happen is men are going to have to start being cutthroat and say, no, we're going to put these kind of laws in place. We're going to vote against all of your stuff, and we're going to push that stuff back. Because if we don't do that, they're never going to just say, you know what, we're going to do this out of the goodness of our heart. Okay, it's never going to happen. And maybe that seems pessimistic. Maybe it seems, like, you know, like somebody did me wrong or something. Maybe I seem bitter or something. I don't know what it sounds like, but that's just the reality. With something like parental alienation, and I did a video on this. We know who is doing the parental alienating. The dominant person, if it's a woman or a man, we know who is doing it. Like 80% of the time, 85% of the time, we know who's doing it. The reason that they don't do anything about it is because it's women doing it. If it was men doing it, then they would have already done something about it. So anyhow, I'll get off my soapbox.
And yeah, so I don't know if you had finished your point there about BGS, that is about taking the children. If they don't act right, take the children and give it to the man. Had you finished your point there regarding the
Yep.
parental alienation,
I
how it
mean,
could be
I mean,
policed?
we actually look back at me and Dr. Gigi, the Green Gorilla, actually looked back at this Columbia uh, paper, right? Columbia law paper, going back to the Tenures Act in the UK back in the 16th century, and that was the beginning of the end of the patriarchy, right? But before the custody of infants with Caroline Norton, the children belong to the father 100% of the time. Okay, she can go, she can leave, she don't get no property, she don't get no kids. Okay, children belong to the father. Okay, and they said right then, if you start giving women those children, women will start acting up. Okay, so women do not know how to handle this. And fast forward 200 years, guess what? See the same shit, same stuff. Excuse me. Women, give if we either you're gonna absolve men of their patriarchal duties, okay, or go back to a patriarchy and give men the custody of their children. That's the way it should have been. That's the way it was until the state got involved.
Shout out to Kaisorian Empire for that's
Kenya shillings.
less than $2. It's less than
Oh
$2.
yeah, no, it's way less than $2. Let me
Oh
show
yeah,
you.
that's Kenya shillings. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
1.36.
It goes
Boy,
further, and it goes further in Nairobi.
oh yeah, hold up here. $1.38.
Oh,
Thank
hey,
you very
hey,
much. Thank you very
the
much.
dollar goes further.
Shout out to you. And also, yeah, take heed to what Kaiser was saying there. Keep the super chats flowing. Somebody asked in the chat about what mammals do we know that don't nursery their young. I admit, maybe you mean like nurse their young, but
Yes.
generally speaking, I
Uh,
think that yeah, by the definition of mammals, of which humans are one, warm-blooded vertebrates that, typically have hair, they have milk for their kids, and have well-developed brains. So they have this long, extended period where they have to take care of their kids. And also, a thing about mammals is they engage in play. They simulate reality by playing, dogs, cats, with children. They kind of play with each other and that kind of stuff. So, yes, we share all these things, and to the degree to which we deviate from that, then such kind of anti-nature arguments can be used, right? Even though anti-nature arguments can be devious sometimes. But Kaizo, okay, what are the consequences that could be brought to bear here? Okay, adult supervision is talking about Abrahamic faiths or Islam regarding the women, not being the primary, owners of the kids. Out here in Ghana, from where I speak to you right now, it's also the case. It's the man. You mess up, you want to break things apart. The man's going to take the kid. Generally speaking, for the reasons which
amen.
we kind of understand, we kind of
Okay.
understand why. And in addition to the fact that I mentioned that, hey, these women, you're going to tell these women that they're bad. They already know that they're bad. Even if you told them that it affected the kids badly, it's not going to matter, right? Because it's about the
Look. These
feelings.
look. I gotta say something. Look, these see this stuff is so phony and jacked up. You can show them the data, the studies, the statistics. Of course, I know none of that stuff matters to them. I know, but you can show them the evidence that them splitting up their family is going to adversely affect their kids. And what do they say? My kids deserve to see me happy. That's what they say. That's what they say. They
Can I make this
deserve to
stuff up?
see me happy.
Can I make
Really?
this stuff up, Doc? We hear it all the time, man. That's one thing being in the manosphere and on YouTube.
Yeah, but I think
They proudly say this stuff.
It's so ridiculous.
you guys made the
Go ahead, Ken.
mistake, right? Yeah, like so it's not just Ghana, like it's a whole Africa actually. Legally speaking, the children are the children of the man. Culturally speaking as well. So actually, it's much easier for men to get custody. There's reasons why, right? He tends to have more money, of course, to take care of the
Yep.
kids. So that definitely takes into account. So, but it's usually the man's family giving the child here automatically, unless the wife obviously puts in a application, right? I know culturally speaking, you are your father's child over here in this whole country. So I think you guys fell off when you allowed Western culture to take on hold, and then
I
you
don't. I
entered
don't
into.
think they allowed. I think the Wangas sold them, and I think my people sold them over here too. Shout out
We
to
don't
the
allow nothing. We don't allow
The
nothing. We still
Yamian
don't allow
loyal
nothing.
dynasty slinging those left and right.
It's
Uh-uh.
it's it's
So
it's like allowing them to take us to prison. Okay.
I get it. I get it. Okay, that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, yeah, I can't argue against that, right? Like, no,
but
no,
what
no
what can
comment.
be done though in the modern environment? The difficulty in policing the modern environment has look. Let's not get too philosophical. How do we police this thing? What can be done? Laws were mentioned. I also mentioned individual choice, right? In the sense of, hey, you know what? I'm going to draw a line in the sand and not deal with certain type of people anymore. And who that type is up to you. It might be, hey, I'm just leaving the West. It might be like you guys, or I'm going to go find a Muslim somewhere, right? What can be done as individual men, as men in the West, as a group of men, let's say, as a state that seeks to perhaps rein in the damage being done, the psychological damage being done by some women. And that one's for you guys, though. I don't know if you're muted.
Can you repeat the question?
What is to be done? What kind of policing can be brought to bear on these types of harm, like parental alienation and psychological damage done by women?
Okay. Honestly, okay. This. Okay. I'll just go through my mind what comes up. You could get more black men, right? Specifically men, right, into all these social sciences, write research papers, garner loads of citations, and get a lot of them in powerful positions, especially policy making sort of stuff. That will happen, right? And that's so that the solution will have to be tandem, right? So different people at different angles, but that's not really going to solve it, right? Ultimately, I think it has to be tackled from the individual, right? So the small time you have with your kids, speak to them, right? If you can afford it, right, get them a therapist. It's not as if they're going to block a therapy session on the court order, etc. Right? Those are things which they like and agree with. Find therapists who are sympathetic towards this specific angle, right, and then kind of train them towards this situation. And if it's let's say you're still stuck in that relationship, then you actually have more power and control. And I would say, just spend more time as much as you can. Don't do the same thing. Don't create an antagonistic representation of the mother. Yeah, that would just be low level as well. So I'll say those are the main things because ultimately, yeah, there's really nothing else you can do.
What about your favorite idea of taking over the churches? I assume that's one of the institutions, right? One of the institutions you're going to take
The
over. You
Black
talked about
Manosphere,
therapists, social
the Black Manosphere came
scientists.
to me. The Black Manosphere came for me, and they called me black male feminist. So I stopped with thinking that there's solutions, man. I became like LAR. I became a what's that word? What is he? He's, the guy who doesn't believe in
Nihilist. Became a nihilist like
nihilist, right?
LAR.
I became a nihilist, right? Because it was a great idea, right? It's like go and take over. Like it's a path of least resistance, right? Niggas is Christian, right, or Islamic, but let's just say more of them is Christian. Take over the churches, right? Introduce patriarchy again through the emotionalism. Remove all the women pastors, and revive the church, make it into a business, like a real legit thing. You can do that, right? That will definitely help. And women
Yeah,
love
yeah.
powerful men, so they'll do
Yeah,
that,
the
right?
reason that
Taking their
that
kids
would
to their
the reason
pastor.
that that
Just
the
make sure you
reason
don't
that
become a corrupt pastor and do no backflips.
yeah the reason that taking over the churches wouldn't work here is that you have like 30,000 denominations, Protestant denominations. So they would just go and go to a different one. See, I
Hmm.
just vacated the premises. I'm Orthodox, and we don't play that. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
very clear roles for men and women, and folks don't try to buck it because we recognize that we're putting forward something that is 2,000 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not going we're not going to change it.
Yeah. You
But
separated church and state 300 years ago. So
Hmm.
yeah,
if you don't
Yeah, it's surprising how.
if you can't control if you can't change the state, nothing's going to change. The state determines winners and losers.
yeah,
Hmm,
Eh,
hmm, hmm,
Even
hmm,
even
hmm.
even in patriarchal countries like South Korea and even the Middle East, it's starting to change. Okay, South Korea is even worse than the United States. In other words, the system is virtually collapsing, uh, and they're highly patriarchal, highly authoritarian. Okay, and it's still collapsing. If you can't change the state, and the state doesn't enforce this stuff, it's not going to happen.
yeah.
Uh, Kaiser, real quick
But
on
to
the
add to that, yeah.
just yeah, you may add what you want to add real quick, and then round up your point and add to this just my musings here regarding, you know, so you have these people whom go and they buy up land in some backwater. They kind of become the mayor of this little township that they have set up, and so on and so forth. Some people do it in Mexico. Shout out to the senior Mitt Romney and other such type people. Um, I don't know of any black people who have tried that. I'm not talking about this being a general solution, but it just shows it's an example, it's an initiative, and it'll work for those people there at least, right? What are your thoughts about that? Go out there, get some land and start your own thing, and maybe with
Great.
your own church.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, great question actually. So yeah, in terms of solutions, that is the easiest and most fruitful solution, because what you do is let's say is it Alpaca or what's the name of that area where Apache, I think, right?
Appalachia,
Where,
whatever.
yeah, whatever that alpaca place, right? Over there, that's like right now the economy collapsed because of the coal industry, and certain reductions of it's more or less policies, right? So they can't do as much coal mining as much anymore. So, anyways, you go find a place like that, Apache. I think it's Apache. Then you buy loads of land in that area, including houses, very cheap, and you guys create your own little civilization there. It's an elite black civilization with rules, order, church, and everything, and you start afresh. You start your own tribe ultimately. I mean, we Africans have done it many times. Every time a tribe split off, for example, the Baganda people, right? The Baganda kingdom. Hey, the Wangas came from there. They realized that the king, Mwanga the second, he was actually homosexual. So we left there and we started our own little tribe, right? So it can be done, right? You can buy land and find, like-minded individuals. So I say the red pill community needs to actually act like it and start to invest, right? And then create like a feasible, market economy. But that will take work, and I think that's the issue. And obviously, we know black men don't like working.
Not in the United States, it's not
Ow,
possible.
$5.
Not possible. They've tried it. It's not possible. You're not in the United States.
Thank you for the cash out from Boaz, honey. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Shout
Or you
out,
could do
shout
it
out,
Africa,
shout out.
Well, you
right?
could
Because
do it
I
in
Yeah,
got
you know
one
Africa.
what?
successful. One successful group
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
the Demona guys from ancient, the Israelites. What's the names, right? The Israelites that went to Demona, Israel. They set up their own community. They're doing really well. They've got zero health issues because they redefined their diets and everything. They've got order, control, and there's like several 100,000, well, okay, not 100,000, like 20,000 of them. So yeah, it can work. Go
and you're
somewhere new.
talking, for those who don't know, you're talking about the Hebrew Israelite, those guys, right? And they went,
Yes, yes, they,
not
they
just
actually do it. Yeah.
yeah. And by the way, I went to one of my farms yesterday, right? Deep in the wood, deep in the jungles, and part of this particular farm
Oh,
here is uh it, it's fresh virgin land, hasn't been used for farming before. Going to do like some palm plantation. So this is like deep in the, you know, and then kind of walking around, did miles and miles, and then ended up in one of the little huts of one of the people that kind of work the land over there, um, and it was very interesting. The thoughts that came to me regarding this type of a setup, right? I'm like, because your money goes really far in those areas. Accra, where I'm at right now, is like freaking the Bay Area in terms of how it costs me the same thing here or there, right? But when you go into those areas, the kind of life that many people talk about, they dream about in the
you pay
West,
people
right?
$2 a
Where
day and they'll okay.
yeah, you literally we sat down. This woman, the wife, went and harvested some yams, right? Yams are like a tuba. They're not the yams of the United States, but they're similar, right? These big things, harvested it. As we were walking back from the farm, we picked up like some eggplants and this and that, blah blah blah. We're sitting there. She's got fresh stuff, right off the farm, cutting it. There's goats around and chickens and stuff. I'm like, many people would love like, this is the stuff that you hear, right, from the West, like, oh my God, I want to do this. And it is actually quite doable, right? Literally, all I, because I'm kind of doing it in the sense that I have, it's the farm over there and setting up stuff. But I think in terms of, people finding their peace of mind and being able to live a certain kind of lifestyle, and no one is really going to bother you that deep in the woods and whatnot. And you still have Wi-Fi and all those other things. It's generally, you know, and you can have stuff set up. You dig a borehole. I'm gonna share some videos, by the way. There's a fresh stream over there with a waterfall. It's crazy, right? But anyways, I'll get off my soapbox, and I want to ask LAR, because I don't think he's had the chance to chime in about this parental alienation, and how do you go ahead and fight against it type situation, right? What kind of how do you disincentivize it? How do you police it um, in the West?
If you're not gonna do what BGS said about take the kids, then you take some of the money. You can't get paid for in our society. You get paid for alienating. You get paid for um, bad parenting. So if you take some of the money away, it takes the incentive away, and then 9 times out of 10 people will act like they got sense, not even actually have sense, but they'll act like it because they don't want to lose. So to me, that's probably the only way, and if you look at the normal thing that's been going on in the courts, where men have to go to court over and over and over and over again to get a woman a slap on the wrist. Well, you know, and they're gonna collect the money anyways. They always take a percentage of the child support money anyways. It's just take some of it and send it back and keep the same percentage.
Hmm. LAR hitting us with denialism and whatnot. But there is hope, ladies and gentlemen, is there not? I mean, we just mentioned the law in Tennessee, but that was on the paternity thing, right, ladies and gentlemen? Because we are talking about the asymmetry in terms of cheating, right? Dr. Thunder has given us he gave us a worldview that says, hey, morally, it's bad for men or women when it comes to cheating. But when it comes to the actual consequences, pragmatically speaking, that is, that there is an asymmetry in the consequences. And there's also asymmetry in the ability to hide your illegitimate family. As a man, you have to go through crazy rigmarole and expenses and whatnot. I have a friend, a Mexican friend, whom his dad had a secret family this whole time. He did not learn until he was like 30 years old. Then he was like, oh, that's why this guy was so stressed, right? His his dad had a whole, and it wasn't just some kind of secret family that you don't take. He was taking like full taken care of, school uniforms, everything. Okay, and the dude was stressed. But as a woman, you could have your secret family right there in your husband's house, and your husband thinks it's his family, right? So there's an asymmetry in terms of the opportunity to hide certain things, and this is to the disadvantage of men. How is that to be addressed? And we looked at it through the view of Mr. Kirk Franklin and his father, whom turned out not to be his father. We could talk about Tupac as well, right? Tupac's another figure out there whom was a who really did not know who his father was, and was told one story, and that story might not be true. Okay, so we're starting to wind down this conversation, and we've
Yeah, yeah,
covered a number
yeah,
of things.
yeah. Tyler Perry's another. So
Oh, is he?
yes.
Interesting, interesting, interesting. Tyler Perry's an interesting case. You see, Netflix is out here giving money to Nollywood or Nollywood, whatever the hell they call these Nigerian dusties, money
Uh huh.
for production and whatnot. I've always wondered why Tyler Perry didn't come in and just dominate this, add this, this money over here to his back pocket, because he could, right? I mean, he has the production, he has all that kind of stuff, but this is a complete sidebar. But given the kind of thing that the kind of stuff that he puts out,
Mm-hmm.
it almost seems like he's being controlled by someone else, and maybe the kind of thing that he puts out would not fly over there, and he's not interested in
Hey,
putting
he has,
something
he
different.
has, he hasn't talked to you yet, Ike. That's all. We need to get him in contact with you. Mhm.
He makes too much money, Ike. He makes too
He-
much money. That was his issue in Hollywood. They found out how much money he made, and they was like, cut that
yeah,
shit out.
yeah. He makes way a whole lot of money. They doesn't even talk about.
Yeah.
Right. So he's got a formula that works. Is that why he's not trying on different kind of stuff?
No, he's
What
tried
is?
different kind of stuff.
He has tried different kind of stuff. The thing is that yeah, they put him in a box like LR says. He makes way too much money, and they want to limit the amount of power he has. He's already a billionaire, so
Okay. But if you went to Nigeria, for example, as I said, and worked with like two or three studios or like five movies, I'd guarantee they'll blow up. Because the issue with Nigerians, they don't know how to do sound engineering. Because these niggas is so loud that they don't understand like the microphone gratings.
there's a I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it on on open air. But there's a real big reason why
Uh,
Black American technology and Black American business is really not allowed to be done on the continent. You know, it's got more to
See,
do with Europe. It has more to do with Europe than it does with America. But that's a discussion for another day.
okay,
Hmm. You know what? That is, that is a good discussion for another day, because there's so much
yeah,
opportunity. There's so much. I mean,
It's happening. It's happening right now. If okay, I'll just say this. If I can just take like 30 seconds, right? Okay. Europe is always fed off of the continent, right? So if we raise the standard of the continent, even West Africa, right? We raise the standards and actually put in technology and stuff like that. The price goes up. Who does it go up for? I'll keep it there.
oh yeah, true. That's a good point. Because because I thinking about it twice. Just one last comment. Tyler Perry is color grading on his movies top notch, sound engineering top notch, cinematography decent. So yeah, that's the stuff that Nollywood would definitely benefit from.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I've always loved about Tyler Perry because I used to see the stuff that he put on behind the scenes. Because if you go like in Hollywood, I'm living in L.A., so in Hollywood you actually go sit in on the filmings, on the tapings, right? And you see the kind of production that they do, right? And they're all black people. There are no white people working on their productions, right? So one thing I don't like his movies, I don't like his content, but then one thing I loved about Tyler Perry, he actually trained a lot of black people in movie and in TV production for the last, I would say, 30 years. And he has a
Yeah.
whole cache of people that can do that. So if you can just transfer those people with that kind of knowledge to the continent and bring that knowledge to the continent and that technology to the continent, yeah, you'd have something. The thing is, who does it benefit and who does it hurt? What you have to think
Okay.
about.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
So
And just one, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, you're going to have the opportunity to mention a couple of things because you're going to give your closing statements, right? I'm going to start out with Kaizo and then BGS, LAR, and then Dr. Thunder is going to take us out. Shout out to O'Shea when he was, he doesn't do that much content anymore on this particular aspect, but I'm sure it'll cycle back to it. These contents tend to go in cycles. In terms of agriculture, right? You see, in Africa, you don't
Mm.
have to, in order to be, to make the money, you don't have to do too much value add to your products, right? A lot of the rich people just do basic resource extraction in Africa, right? And or farming, let's say, right? And you can do the same, and you can add a couple of steps, like I'm trying to do here with the canning of the palm oil and putting it in pouches and doing certain types of things and creating this fufu or banco stuff that they do, making it into these nice packages and whatnot. And people love packaging. Okay, if it's in a nice package, generally speaking, it will work. And this is an opportunity, maybe not talking of, you don't have to have Tyler Perry type money to do that. And hence you might fly under the radar, right? You can fly under the radar and do it right. Unfortunately, the Ghanaians did that scam called the Year of Return recently. Scam tongue in cheek, but scam de facto because people were not really told the situation that they will face when they got there. People did not really understand that. Hey, you know what? You're not going to own the land. It's a leasehold situation. And hey, you have to actually know the chief and the brother of the chief and the this and the that. And you have to be very skeptical about doing business, especially in a place like Ghana where the law of the chiefs still has a lot of sway, where it is an actual law. And it has to be, anyways, all those types of things has left a bad taste, I think, in the mouths of many African Americans when it comes to going over there. But for those who are serious about, let's say, making that money and getting those returns, which are harder and harder to get in the West, right? What's your 401k getting you? You might get into real estate venture, and if you pull that one through, maybe you can get some better returns, but you can get crazy returns doing simple stuff out there in the quote unquote wild, wild east. But, ladies and gentlemen, we are landing the plane on this very, very important conversation. Case closed, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Highest level conversation on the most relevant topics, ladies and gentlemen. And today we talked about parental alienation. You are not the father, and your father is not your father either. Okay? Kaiser, what are your closing thoughts regarding what do you want to add? Anything? You got the floor, you got the mic.
Yeah, so I want to idea, right? It's simple as this, right? At the end of the day, you got to look at your life, focus on the stuff that you value, right? If you value paternity, then make sure your woman knows, hey, she's gonna have to do a paternity test, right? At some point in that situation, this creates a disincentivization. If you're worried about some social repercussions, then you're a cuck, and you deserve everything that gets to you, right? Second thing is you got to understand the line is coming from me. But the second thing is you got to understand that if you're the kind of person that relies on legal changes, then that's not a solution at all, right? That's something for your kids, etc. It's not for you and your specific generation. So that's another thing, an aspect over there, right? And yeah, both men and women do bad behavior, but you do need to kind of understand the cultures that came before us and the sort of systems that they held in place and for the spirit of those cultures. So I say, yeah, be an individualist, solve your own problems, save yourself, black man.
All right, ending it on a cis bim note, we got BGS, Ibmore, Black, Gnostic Speaks, Black Man of Reform, all that good stuff. Go ahead, sir. What are your closing thoughts?
Like I said, this is a very old problem as far as paternity and mating, dating, and what happens to the children. Um, even today, basically, uh, most with 70% of black women that have kids, more than one child, by more than one father. So this is a very old problem, and it's starting to spread. That's the whole thing. That's why it's such an issue now because it's not just in the black community anymore. The tangle pathology is starting to spread to other people. So it's in the Latino community. It's in the white community now. So that's why it's taken seriously. So the thing is, it's unless you want the whole world looking like the black community, the ADOS community, we got to do something. So this is a very serious problem.
Got to do something indeed. LAR, take us out with your final thoughts, sir.
All nihilism all the time. Um,
Black pill.
exactly. At the end of the day, man, you can't you can't make anybody do anything, but you can make people pay for it. So what you try to do is if actions have consequences, and if somebody does something like that, they got to have a consequence. Same thing with Kurt Franklin. Um, the issue for me was he kept trying with his mother. See, the father that he thought he had, he was like, "I'm gonna be there for him." Da 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 da. But he did. He said he hated the guy his whole life, and then it wound up not being his father. But his mother is the one that keeps putting him through this thing over and over and over and over again. His aunt was the one on that special disrespecting the just treat him like a little boy all the time.
Yeah.
But he kept coming back. So to me, that's the issue with stuff like this is uh the crux of it is people keep wanting a mother's love for because a mother is supposed to be more important than the father, and they're quick to hate the father to the point where now he got a new father, and the new father seemed cool, just like he seems like him and Kurt would be the same kind of guy. So all his good qualities probably came from his actual dad.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what's wrapped up in all of this, like wanting to be on the wrong team. So
So
I'm
you
done.
agree with me, LAR, when I called him a little B at the end, but you were just like, oh, no, you can't say that right off the bat. We gotta. You
You
just
wasn't talking
basically
to my
said.
dad specifically.
Mm.
But to that point, I want to just ask Kaizo to say one more thing, and then Dr. Thunder, you can take us out because you are more adept at kind of this kind of psychological analysis from a non super judgmental point of view, like I would do, right? So when you
Right.
observe someone like Kirk Franklin and the kinds of mistakes that he makes, and when it's not about him in particular, because we there's certain types of people that are kind of like this, that they're wrapped up in some kind of crazy fantasy and they keep falling over and over and they don't know how to cut certain types of things off. What is your analysis of that particular personality type that uses that pay attention to particular types of things, and maybe it can be helpful to other individuals out there, in terms of their growth process? What are your thoughts about this kind of Kirk Franklin like behavior?
Yeah, great question. So Kirk Franklin, obviously one of the most successful gospel artists. Even I used to know him. You go there talking this little big voice and make millions of dollars, right? So this guy, now his personality profile for me, I believe he's a what we call sensor feeler kind of person. And when you're a sense of feel as a man, what that means is societal's expectations. You're going to feel like you have to achieve all those things, right? So the money, the wealth, the fame, as well as the sort of ideal domestic situation. If you don't have all those things in line, these kinds of people feel as if they're missing out. So someone like Kirk Franklin, if you notice the way that he truly felt emotionally distraught about the situation and obviously the lies and everything, it means that it wouldn't have mattered if it was this specific fraud that he encountered or something else, right? Generally, in this kind of people's life, they feel as though they truly believe in a social contract, right? To them, there is an actual feeling within him and society and the people around him. So when he believes he's fulfilling his part, the society isn't. It does actually break them apart. As a censor, he's truly embodying the areas around him. He's seeing things, he's reacting to them, and also as a feeler, he's truly going through the care of all those specific instances. So in general, if you're kind of someone like this, you definitely should go through some introspective analysis. Go for therapy, right? It's going to help you kind of uncover and detangle some of these issues, because generally you are someone that is caught up in society.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. And check us out on Wednesday on Dr. Thunder's channel. We're going to continue our conversation on personality type. So find out your personality type, okay? And nothing wrong with being a feeler, nothing wrong with being a sensor either. But when, if he was a feeling intuitive, for example, he will be able to shift these concepts around easily, more easily, as opposed to it just being the feelings just hitting him over the head and seeing the social contract and seeing everything there so solid, like a block, can't move it, can't shake it, all that kind of stuff. But knowing whom you are as, and then going for, therapy, will help you kind of develop past that. Okay. Now, for someone like me, I have other problems to worry about, right? Maybe I need to develop a little bit of my, stop being as heartless and whatnot. That's a different set of problems. But for these people with too much heart, it's a crazy
Hey,
life.
hang on,
Or
like
maybe they like
one
it.
second. No,
Go ahead.
you don't need to stop that, right? One thing I was actually mentioning yesterday is, everyone. Okay, the way that people are psychologically created is enough to deal with the situation that they're dealing with and the typical life that they're living with. If you start going on a
Yeah, I know. Well, I know you're making a point,
situation,
but of
and
course you know that
showing the
I
whole,
don't actually think I need to
yeah,
change
of
anything
course.
about myself.
This is for the viewers, right? So for the viewers.
Anyone that knows me knows that was cap.
Okay.
But go ahead, Dr. Thunder, take us out.
Yeah. So something that underlines
If you're taking us out, who's paying for the
uh,
first?
Wow.
you're paying, but you need more than that 200 Kenyan shillings.
Chilling.
Um, you know, this whole discussion underlines that no matter what she does, she's esteemed more valuable than you dusty ninjas. Because even the framing of the conversation suggests that you are disposable. You're disposable. You can just be replaced by somebody else. And even when you have conversations with people and they say, well, you don't know what the scenario was, you don't know any of these other details, but why are those other details important unless you're assuming that at least if the mother has the kid, then that's all that's necessary. It doesn't matter if it's the actual father. It doesn't matter if he was if the kid has been lied to and the father has been alienated from his kid, because the mother still has the kid. And even when you show that if there is a parent to have the kid in a single parent scenario, that the kid does better when it's the father, we still prioritize the mother. And even when the mother has been shown to be a liar, we will still give the mother another crack at it. See, that's what this story, the Kirk Franklin, this sad story shows us, is that it's not just the women that are doing this. It's the men too. It's you that don't think that you're worth nothing. And you don't think that other men are worth nothing either. You think that you're disposable. You've been conditioned to think that your biological output doesn't truly belong to you, that your DNA doesn't actually belong to you, that somehow the community will do a better job than you would. And on that note, we will see you next week for another Case Closed, the highest level conversation on the most relevant topics in this space. Thanks to the panel, LAR, Movement, Kaizo, Kaizerian Empire, Ike OG, and of course, our special participant today, panelist, the great BGS Ibmore. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time. Peace.